I'm Jessica Mikowski, mindset coach, co-founder of Yogi Triathlete, and host of the Awake Athlete podcast. Welcome to Season 6, The Road to El Cruce. This season is a living documentary, my journey to a 3-day 100K stage race through the wild terrain of Patagonia. It's not just about endurance training, it's about exploring the mental, emotional, and spiritual edges that shape us. There's no set schedule. Episodes will drop as the layers peel back. My hope is that in hearing my story, you remember your own strength and your own path home. This is me showing up in real time, and I am all in. I'm so glad you're with me. Welcome to episode 12 of the Awake Athlete podcast, season 6, The Road to El Cruce. Well, the road is complete. I am on the other side. I'm back in California after 2 weeks in Argentina. And yeah, here we are. I can't believe it. I mean, I can believe it because I've lived it. And I've lived it with a present mind. Like I've really embodied this training. I've really embodied those 3 days in Patagonia on the race and all the days surrounding it. You know, I've been sitting with how to begin because this episode isn't really about the race. It's about who I became on the way to the race and then what that race revealed back to me. And let me just drop you right into a moment. So I'm standing on the starting line in Argentina, just this sea of people and music and cheering and announcements, all in Spanish, which I don't speak. And that part is actually like super important because the whole start line was loud, but inside me was this huge quiet. It was like being in the middle of chaos, but like untouched by any of it. And then out of nowhere, well, I shouldn't say out of nowhere because I would expect this, just like tears, you know, I had some tears and they weren't fearful and it wasn't overwhelm. It was reverence. Like, holy shit, like we made it. We made it. And when I say we, I mean all the people who have seen me without limitation, every single person I talked to in this community, people on Team Yogi Triathlete, there was never a nanosecond of hesitation. Everyone was like, you're going to be amazing. You're going to crush this. I have no doubt. And that was so incredible to see this belief being reflected back to me, which is truly what it was. And in those human moments that I had along the way, like, oh my God, am I going to die out there? You know, just these human moments. Actually, a couple nights before, I even said to BJ, I was just like, nobody's giving me space to feel scared. And when I looked back at that in reflection, it was like I wasn't giving myself space to be scared. And there's this fine line. I think I'm pretty good at it, but it can only be refined in those moments where like I don't indulge fear. There's the fear that keeps you alive and there's the fear that keeps you from living. And I don't indulge in that fear that keeps me from living. If I did, there would be no podcast. Like simple end of conversation. To just put myself out there, that wouldn't even have happened, let alone going to Argentina for 2 weeks by myself and endeavoring this race and all the training sessions that I didn't want to do or I felt too tired for. Like if I indulged any of that fear, none of this would have happened. And certainly Yogi Triathlete would not exist. I can promise you that. In that moment or in the reflection of that moment, you know, I realized like, okay, I was having those like, whoa, like it's here now. Like you got to do this. You got to show up, girl. And that's a very human thing. Like my nervous system knew that I was doing something that was completely unknown. There was so much unknown about this trip. There was so much unknown. And that lasted throughout the entire trip because I don't speak the language and I didn't understand what they were saying at the starting line, but I just, you know, felt into the response of people, whether they were cheering, whether they were like, oh, really? And I just trusted that I would find my way. And I trusted that there are good and kind and loving people in this world and that they would assist me if they saw that I needed some assistance. And they did, like whether that was during the race, whether that was at a restaurant afterwards when the waiter or the server was asking me questions and they didn't understand them. You know, somebody at another table saw that I was struggling with the communication and they stepped in and they helped. And it was just so beautiful. But fear is really dangerous. Fear attracts the very thing you're fearing, or its equal. And so I've worked a lot with fear. And in that moment of like feeling this big thing on the precipice and my nervous system readying myself to walk into the unknown, I was like, okay, it's all right to feel this way. Like, just allow it to be there and don't blame it on other people that they're not giving you the space. People just believe in you, and give yourself a little space, Jess. Like, I can be tough. I can be really, really tough. And so those gentle little human moments are important as well for me to experience. And living the guidance I give my clients all the time, which is like, it doesn't matter what comes up. It doesn't matter what comes up. That's conditioning, or that's your nervous system, or that's the human reaction of what you're about to step into. It's what do you do with it? And in that moment, when I heard myself say those words to BJ, like, nobody's giving me space to feel scared. I saw it. I was like, oh, like I see that little weak little victim, like that little part of me that's like, I just want to stay home where it's safe. But there's no guarantees that staying home is safe. I got to live my life, and this is how I live it. And I've met this moment so many freaking times. And as big as El Cruce was, as large of an endeavor as this was, and the amount of unknown, it was also the next logical step for me. So let's go back to that starting line, that moment where it was just like, we made it, And when I say we, I mean all the people who have seen me without limitation, like I said, but like my really close circle, like my biggest cheerleaders. My mom is an incredible cheerleader. She has always cheered me on for the life that I want to live, even if that meant letting me go, even if that meant me saying, I'm going to quit Boston University, where I'm on the dean's list and in the School of Communications to become a writer and all of these things. Like, I'm going to go to Florida and we're going to work on a sailboat. Like, my parents would always let me go. They always let me go. And in that letting go, they had trust that I would be protected. I always was. And what an incredible lineage that I get to now embody in my own life. And I don't have children of my own, but I do feel like I'm mother to many. And then I can then pass that on and trust that no matter how much one of my athletes is struggling, that like being in that struggle is so important for them. And that I trust that they will be protected, and that they will have the resolve through the techniques that I teach them to find that inner guidance and that unmoving part of them, that neutral, really powerful part that's like just willing to experience all things in this life. And that is such a high level of intelligence. And I got to live that through this experience. So yeah, BJ, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, like, oh my God, this core group of cheerleaders and believers is incredible. And of course, my sweet boy, Clark. And everyone who has been on this journey with me, like for real, who really know me beyond this podcast, which I don't hold much back on this podcast. So you kind of know me, but, people who have experienced me in person, and that I get to experience them in person is really, really special. But it was like this huge internal bow, of like, I'm so freaking proud of who I am right now and who I've become, because I knew I was going to do it. I did. I knew I was going to do it. But I've come to this point now where it's like, it's not enough for me to just do it. It's how I do it that matters most. So I think people assume, the transformation happened during the race, like on the train, on the trail, in the effort, in the suffering, but it didn't. The becoming of who I am now was happening all along. It happened in the 27 weeks leading up to it. In the fall, in the doubt, in the recalibrating, in the reframing, in the patience that I didn't want to have, but I had to build, like not indulging the addictive stories of negativity and drama, but to like choose presence, to choose the moment I was in and realize that the only thing I have control over is how I move forward. This willingness to experience all things, pleasant and unpleasant, to just keep going. This willingness to experience all things is a very potent theme that I have been living this past year. Like it was my next logical step is to take this idea of being willing to feel all the feelings, to see things that necessarily I don't want to see about myself, and to really feel all the things that come with that. And this race was such a perfect match to that theme that I've had all year. I can't even tell you. So by the time I got to Argentina, I wasn't hoping to become the person who belonged there. Like I already was. I had already earned the cred to be there. I felt very confident. It wasn't the transformation. This race was not the transformation. It was the release into who I am now. And being at that start line, the Argentinian culture is just unreal. There was no lack of energy with that culture. It was so divine. It was so uplifting, people jumping and dancing at the starting line. I absolutely love that. And when I think about my first Ironman in 2008 in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I remember being on the beach. It was a mass start. I was in the front row of 2,000 people about to start this day. And I recall dancing and just having so much fun and so much joy over just the massive endeavor that was about to start unfolding. And I felt that same thing on that starting line. Yeah, it was like this divine energy. It was a sacredness. It was playful and really powerful at the same time. It was this beautiful celebration. And because I can't understand this language, I wasn't pulled into anyone's story, which was kind of cool. Even though I could hear different energies of behind the conversations, I wasn't pulled into anything. There was no judgment there because I didn't know what they were saying. I wasn't interpreting anything. I wasn't reacting. It was this really incredible container that stayed with me for the 3 days where I was like this witness at a whole new level. Although I was experiencing this thing with all these people, I was in silence. Most of the time, I was in complete silence, just being in the moment, being in the step. I wasn't reacting. It felt like I was moving through hundreds of people in silence. I was just witnessing. And it was honestly one of the most beautiful experiences of clarity that I've ever had before in a race. That language barrier was gold. It was such gold. Because then I learned, well, I didn't even learn this. I think I experienced what I know is that, you don't have to have this language. You don't have to be in the physical having a conversation with someone to experience something with someone, And that's what I had, is I had this ability to experience this incredible unfolding, this beautiful terrain over the course of these days without reacting, without judgment, without being like, oh, that person's so negative. I just felt real uplifting and supportive energy from everyone. It was very cool. So mantras. Yeah. I had 3 mantras that really just anchored me throughout because the terrain was varied, very, very steep, and it's a race. So, before I go into the mantras, let's go into the strategy. First of all, when I got on that starting line, I was so ready. There was nothing about me that was not ready. There was nothing different I would have done with my training. When I was hurt after falling on the trail and couldn't run for 3 weeks, I booked a trip to Colorado to do altitude training for 8 days. I just kept moving forward in whatever way that I could move forward. I was so happy and content with my training, with the guidance of course, my husband, which I'm sure I'll get into at a deeper level here. But I was so ready for that race. There was nothing I would have done differently, honestly. So the strategy was, the first day was keep it at a 5 to 6. I didn't use heart rate. I didn't really use any metrics. I went on feel, which is, I think, a super important thing for athletes to learn how to do. Because there has been races where my watch doesn't work or my bike computer dies. And it's what do you do then if you're so reliant on data? It's not like I don't use data. I do. But for this, I was going to be fully on feel. I haven't worn a heart rate monitor for a very long time. I can pretty much tell you what my heart rate is at any given point. And I know, when it gets too high, I know when it's too low and I'm being lazy out there. So yeah, the first day was a 5-6 feel. And then the second day, the strategy was, it's a good day for a strong day. And so in the last part of that, I just kind of kept that with me. That's what BJ said. Day 2 is a good day for a strong day. And I kept that with me all day. And And anytime, it was basically like anytime I could run, I would run. And then as I was running, it was like, can you go a little faster? Can you be a little lighter? Can you be taller? Can you be more easeful in your efforting? And then towards the end, I think like the last 10 or 8K of that race, I must have passed, no exaggeration, probably 25 or 30 people who were walking. Some of them were limping because they went out too hard, but a lot of them were just walking. And like, man, I just think like it's a race, like race it. And so that felt really good to just be able to pass so many people in the last part of that stage. And then the third stage strategy was finish line energy, just give it everything. And I started that race not knowing what the route was for the third stage because they were releasing the routes the day before each stage. And so the way that this worked was there was 5 groups of runners. The first group went on Monday. They finished on Wednesday. The second group went on Tuesday. They finished on Thursday. The third group, which I was in, started on Wednesday and we finished Friday. Then there was a 4th group and a 5th group. So by the time I started, they had not released the stage yet for the third stage, which the third stage, talk about the unknown, revealing everything you've waited for your entire life. This was by far the most thrilling and beautiful and just, oh my God, like this stage was me and I absolutely loved it. High mountain traverse, high wind, ridiculously steep climbs. Your quads are absolutely torched. And I remember on the climb, 2 things. I remember on the climb, the first thing was like, how do I describe this climb? And I looked straight ahead. And when I looked straight ahead, all I could see was the heels of the guy in front of me. That's how steep it was. So I was like, okay, that's a good way to describe it. And then the second part was like, oh my God, this is so steep. I was so glad of all the step ups to high knees that I did in the gym, but it was hours of just this super steep climbing. And my mind did think like, how are you going to do the downhill? Because the downhill on stage 1 was ridiculously steep. And so the mind just assumes, because it goes off of what it knows, right? Was that the descent was going to be just as steep. And I was like, just be here now. Be here now. You don't know how your quads are going to feel. You don't know how your quads are going to feel after this climb. You don't know what's happening in your body right now to balance out soreness, the flow that's happening, the circulation that's happening, the oxygen that's getting delivered. You don't know. Be here now. So to come back to those mantras, be here now. Nothing existed but the step I was in. Be here now is a failsafe motto and mantra for anything in life, especially when you're in overwhelm. God, there's so much overwhelm in this world, and overwhelm has nothing to do with now. If we all just strengthened our relationship with the present moment and trained our minds to not live in the future or the past, we would never experience overwhelm again. The other mantras I used, push the earth away. And that comes from our mobility coach, Lawrence Van Lingen. Just push the earth away. He talks about riding and running with bones, not muscles, and pushing the earth away. And it isn't about forcing. It's becoming this like engine, meeting the terrain with strength, not tension, right? Tension is not strength. Tension is fragility. So you want to have that easeful efforting, that relaxation. And this push the earth away is like, it's almost like you're on this treadmill and the earth is the belt and you are just pushing the earth away. I love that mantra so much. And then the third mantra, which was really the big one for everything. And I think I read this like 2 or 3 nights before I started the race. I traveled with the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is actually Hindu scripture, but it tells the tale of the everyman's battle with the mind. This is an absolute must for any athlete that wants to have a strong mind. You must read the Bhagavad Gita and not just read it, but study it and live it. Gandhi lived the Gita as a guide for his life. And I would say I do as well. And nothing that I have read has been more relevant to me as an athlete than the Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 2, self-realization, verse 14, when the senses contact sense objects, A person experiences cold or heat, pleasure or pain. These experiences are fleeting. They come and go. Bear them patiently, Arjuna. The Bhagavad Gita is the story of Arjuna. He's the greatest warrior of all time. And it starts out on the battlefield, and he's about to go into this massive battle of good and evil. He's in his chariot, and Krishna is his guide, and Krishna represents the higher mind. Arjuna represents you and me, just the everyman, the every person, the every woman. And he says, okay, I'm going into this battle. Let me see who I'm fighting. And he sees who he's fighting, and he says, well, I can't do this. That's my family. Those are my cousins. Those are my elders. Those are my uncles. Essentially, who he's battling is the thoughts, right? This is the bigger teaching. It's like he's going to battle his own thoughts, his ego. And he says, I can't do it, and he falls to the floor of the chariot, and Krishna says, get up and fight. This cowardness does not become you at all. And I think as endurance athletes, we have to rise up to that so much, get up and fight, show up for the workout, show up for the race, show up for the moments that feel scary and let them move through you. We can't create or destroy energy, but we can transmute it. And so this whole book is about becoming the master of your mind. And we live in this world of sense objects, what we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. And our mind lives through the senses. So it will get attached to these things. And then we label it based on our history, like this is good, this is bad, I hate this, I love this. And that bear them patiently, Arjuna, just stayed with me. And, when I was going up these steep ascents, just bear them patiently. They are fleeting. That shooting pain that just came up your left ankle into your leg, that's fleeting. It will come, it will go. That is, to me, is a fluid mind. And the success of this race wasn't that I did it. It was how I did it. And I did it with a fluid mind. The fluidity of the mind was really fueled by the willingness to experience things. And listen, I know people love dramatic lows. I know everybody wants to hear about my suffering story, but I didn't have a single low, not one. Was it demanding? Absolutely. Was I ready? I was deeply prepared for this race, and I moved through everything. The terrain of this race, you name it, bamboo forests, ancient forests, high mountain passes, technical ridges, butter-like single track, insane straight up climbs, quad destroying straight down descents, volcanic sand, beach sand, loose dirt, roots, rivers, riverbanks, mud, dry heat, cold wind, all of it. It was like running through every biome on Earth in 3 days. But because my mind was free, truly, it was free. I never registered a struggle. It was just experience. One big, living, breathing experience. 3 days in big nature with a quiet mind, that's freedom. And God, I'm so addicted to that freedom. Being away from the world, we are so addicted to limitation. And I think my biggest work is to continue to live at this more expanded level that I'm at now in a world that is going to try very, very hard to make me small. And I will not do it. That is the fight. That's the battle of the mind. That's what the Bhagavad Gita teaches. The only war that we all must wage in this life is the battle of the mind. To realize our truest potential, our fullest expression, whoever it is that we dream to be or we feel purposeful to be in this world. That's what it's about. And the more I do this, and I have cultivated this mind over so many years, but that unshakable part of me just thrives when I'm in these race experiences or these big endeavors, oh man, I'm so addicted to that freedom. I just want more. And then the work is to be this is enough right now because freedom is freedom, and just keep going and allow yourself to be free as you continue to experience life. Okay, what else do we want to talk about here? Nutrition. Let's just talk about nutrition for a second because I totally nailed it. Probably the most confident I've ever felt nutritionally in an ultra. I mean, honestly, like I used Blank Sports Nutrition. Instead of having a bladder in my running vest, I just had different, these 17-ounce soft flasks, which were great because I already had them loaded with Blank's nutrition and the right stuff. So Blank's is 400 calories and 100 grams of carbs. And the right stuff, I think, has like 1,730 milligrams of sodium, which was so amazing. And it was developed by NASA, actually, for astronauts. And I love this stuff. I live for it. I discovered it when I was doing a cycling challenge in Costa Rica. Yeah, that combined with the Blank Sports Nutrition, just absolutely amazing. Never had a stomach issue, never felt sick, never did I feel any of those things. I supplemented with SIS gels and I put them in flasks. I had 5 gels per day. Actually, I've got the breakdown right here. So let's just look at it. I'll give you kind of the what I ended up having. So day 1, I averaged 423 calories an hour and 137 grams of carbs. That's awesome. And you'll see there's a little bit of a downturn in the nutrition over the days. Day 2, I averaged 364 calories an hour and 93 grams of carbs. Day 3, 291 calories an hour, 75 grams of carbs. So there was a little bit of like a decrease in each day. And I could feel I was light on the 3rd day. I was very aware of it. I never let myself get to a bonk by any means, but I did feel a little bit lighter on calories. And then I fueled really well. Like I would come back to camp, I would immediately have my recovery mix, Blank Sports Nutrition recovery mix. And then I would follow that up with a super greens, a Nalgene of super greens, the Bloom super greens, and then creatine. And I will full admittedly, I did have a little bit of the asado. I think it was like on the 2nd night, my friend got a piece of meat and I was like, okay, I'm interested in trying it. Maybe it was the 1st night. I think it was camp 1. Yeah. And I had a little bite of it and I was like, okay, I'm good, and just really felt really grateful for the animal and the sacrifice. And like, I don't know, I just didn't have any judgment. And that wasn't a surprise because I haven't had judgment for a very long time about how anybody eats. I think if we're talking about ahimsa and doing the least amount of harm in any given situation, like for me to judge someone or say that they should be eating another way, like, isn't that harm? Yeah, it is harm. And then after stage 2, I did have, after I hammered a lot of honeydew melon and watermelon at the finish line, I was like, I'm going to have one of these sandwiches. And so I had bread with a little bit of meat in there and I ate that and it felt okay. Like I wouldn't say I'm a meat eater by any chance, but I definitely like experienced some curiosity and I fulfilled that curiosity and I'm good. And I felt grateful and I don't judge myself for it. So, yeah. So I think I fueled really well outside of things. Every morning I would have like oatmeal and, there's a word for it, but basically it's like a croissant, which like with sugar on top. So I ate that. And then I would always have a 17-ounce flask of either electrolytes or Blanks in the morning. So I felt like I was like ready to roll. I really, really feel like I nailed my nutrition. My fueling intervals were on point, no drama, no guessing, like just sucking down those bottles. I did Coke after included in those calories per day is when I finished the Blanks, I would just fill up with Coke. Oh, that is just such rocket fuel. I absolutely love Coke. And I really didn't eat much else on the aid stations. I had some chips one day, watermelon. I would eat watermelon and that was kind of it. So yeah, I have to tell you this because it's exactly how mindset shows up in real time. Like there was no drama around my nutrition. It was just getting the fuel in. My body accepted it. And then in moments where I needed to reframe, it was like the reframe was right there, right? On the first morning, I was so excited to have a cup of coffee. I got the coffee, black coffee, because they were like, do you want sugar? And I was like, no, and no sugar, just black. And I got the coffee and I took a sip and I was like, oh my God, there's sugar. There's sugar in the coffee already. And that is how they make it. I remember I had this super sweet woman was making us coffee in Costa Rica. And when we took a sip, I was like, oh my God, there's sugar already in here. Whoa, it was so gross. But then I thought like, okay, caffeine, I need it. Sugar, I need it. okay, move on. Here it is. Like, this is the gift. I'm getting it right here, all in one. And it was funny. I wrote in my journal, like, I'm acquiring a taste for this sugar coffee by the end of the race on stage 3. I was like, I'm going to have a little sugar coffee, knowing that I wouldn't be having sugar coffee for a very long time. But that's it. That's the mindset work. That's the years and years, all the reps of like reframing when you don't want to reframe, like when you want to be in the drama, when you want to be a victim. And I'm sorry, but I have found myself there so many times, like if I'm just victim enough, then somebody will see me suffering and they'll come and they'll save me, but it never happens, and the victimhood just gives you more victimhood. Life just reflects you. You want to know what's going on in your inner house, look at your outer house, look at life around you. When I started looking at that, there was so much beauty around me, but then there were some dark spots and I was like, look at that, seeing that in that person. Where is that in me? That is the ultimate question. Where is that in me? After you do this 1,000 million times, like the reframe is just right there. It's your go-to. It's so cool. It's amazing. So we are going to record a Yogi Triathlete podcast episode, and I'm going to be answering questions from the team, questions from BJ, who is going to interview me on that. And I'm sure we're going to get into a lot more specifics. So definitely check out that SmackDown. This will launch first, and then the SmackDown will launch after that. So if you're not already subscribed to receive the Yogi Triathlete podcast, do that, because it's an incredible podcast and it's been going since 2016. We were one of the first. It's really, really cool. Yeah, this race was so unique. Like nothing I had done before. And I don't think I've ever been more ready, And I think that wasn't so much in the training, but in the mind. And it also held more unknown than anything I've done. And this willingness to experience all things. This race required a high level of logistics, not just leading into it, but every single day, getting the bottles ready, packing up the camp bag, like getting your recovery in, the gear checks, finishing these big races and just wanting to collapse in your tent. But you had to do a gear check. If you didn't have the gear, you'd be disqualified. You had to get your camp bag. You had to schlep it back to your tent. Get into the lake, get your clothes out into the sun, let them dry, all of these things, the torched quads, the recalibrations, all the unknown. And because I was willing, like I stayed open, I stayed calm, and I just stayed available to the experience. And I'm just so happy about all of that. So, I'd be remiss not to mention the role of my husband in this. His belief in me has been unwavering to the point where like, I want, in those moments where I just like, sometimes I have to say to him, like, I just need to be your wife right now and not your athlete. Like, can you just like hold me? Can you just indulge my weakness and make me feel safe right now? Those moments, I think we got to honor those moments as humans, and we have to ask for those moments to be received by others around us. And he knew exactly when to be stern and when to be supportive and when to guide and when to get out of my way. He's the person I could call from the trails. And this is what he offers for all of his athletes, just this high touch coaching. I would call him from the trails, like when I genuinely just didn't know if I should stop or if I should keep going. I am somebody, I know myself, I will bury myself before I give up. And so I've learned to reach out to him in those times. And I would say 99% of the time, he was like, keep going, just walk it, hike it, whatever you need to do, like take a break, pause your watch, meditate on the trail, and then keep going. I think there was like one time where he was just like, get back to the car, like come home. It's fine. Just come home. He's the one who like never let me indulge any worry about cutoffs. And if I was going to make them, he built the plan. He trusted me with it. And then he released me at the start line without any pressure to check in with him or be in contact with him. And as his wife, he knows that this is what I require. I require independence and space to live my own life, as well as the life that I live with him. And that's coaching, that is his coaching. That's Yogi Triathlete. It's a really incredible force that has moved through both of us. And so I thank him because, man, I have never, in all the years that he has been my coach, showed up to a race and not felt ready for it. Like I was so ready for this. And this is my education as a mindset coach. Something I've been talking about a lot is just this idea that like our culture reveres diplomas and certificates. And listen, they're fine. That's great. Love it. But real wisdom comes from direct experience. I want to work with somebody who's living what they're teaching, knowledge versus embodied knowing. In yoga, we call it jnana and vijnana. Jnana is like, okay, I know how to build a fire. Like I saw someone build it. Vijnana is I built the fire and I got the flames going. And El Cruce was a 3-day initiation into embodiment, into a deeper knowing that I can do anything I set my mind to, and so can you. And this allows me to lead my athletes, the ones who are willing, because I cannot do it on my own. They have to be willing to show up and do the work. I can lead them through any threshold they want to cross. And this is where I want to say something about coaching, both yogi triathlete coaching and included in that my mindset coaching. Endurance doesn't have to destroy you. It doesn't have to cost you your mental health, your relationship, or your nervous system. You can go big and stay grounded. You can push and stay well. You can achieve and stay sane. This is what we teach because it's what we embody. It's because BJ and I are living this. That's why we have the cred to teach it, because we live it at such a high level. And I feel like he did after Kona last year when he did the world championship 3 weeks after a really, really bad bike crash where he couldn't even walk when we arrived to the island without assistance, and ended up doing the Ironman World Championship. And he finished that race like a different person. And he was just like, you cannot, no one can mess with me. And that's how I feel after El Cruce. If you want a mind that can meet the mountains without collapsing, we can help you build that. You have to be willing to show up. We will not drag you. We will let you fail, but we will give you everything. But you've got to give us something to work with. You have to show up for the work. And if you show up for the work like I did for this, and then having BJ as my coach, the success and the ease and the health at which you come out the other side of is just, it's so not the norm. So, all right, I'm going to leave you with this because I got to shut this down. I could go on forever. It's not that I did this race, but it was how I did it. Presence, willingness, and execution. I am forever changed in the best way, in the deepest way. I am unshakable, and not because of the finish line, but because of the mind I have built and the mind that I lived through on all 3 of those stages. And you can build this mind too. This was El Cruce, The Crossing. Thank you for being here with me for this season. This show is brought to you by Yogi Triathlete, because you are born for more than just pushing through. We've been leading the way in holistic performance since the beginning, body, mind, and spirit. So thanks for tuning in. Stay awake, stay the course, and I'll meet you back here soon.